So now, please welcome the official, non-official, non-sponsor of the Savannah Bananas, but a big fan. Please welcome John Fletcher.
Well, thank you, Jesse Cole, owner of the Savannah Bananas, and welcome to this edition of 15 on Fridays with Fletch. Today we visit with former Marine fighter pilot who grew up in the oil fields and plains of New Mexico and West Texas. He attended but didn't graduate from Texas Tech initially because the draft board called after 4 years. Then many years later, after service to Texas Tech, he received an honorary doctorate. Public service-wise, he's served on the Texas Higher Education Board and the Texas Tech Board of Regents. His connections at the university led him to become best friends with then football coach Mike Leach, and he was also friends with another legend, basketball coach Bobby Knight. Carey Hobbs led his company, Hobbs Bonded Fibers, to become the largest quilt batting manufacturer in the world, and he was also a leader in the automotive and healthcare sectors. He's the ultimate connector, calling governors, senators, and even presidents his friends, and they are all in his home. A portion of this book's sales will benefit the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, which reminds us to never forget September 11, 2001. Please welcome my friend from the tennis courts of Waco, celebrating his recent 90th birthday with the launch of his book, Piloting Life, One Man's Reflections on Life and the Lessons He's Learned. It's a book that inspires us to never give up, and the release date is Sunday, February 1st. So please welcome Carey Hobbs. Carey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, my pleasure.
So you've had a fascinating career in the quilt batting industry as well as healthcare and automotive sectors. How did you get started?
Well, I got out of the service and went to work for my in-laws, and they made, at the time, supplies for the bedding and furniture industry, which is cushioning materials. So that's where I got started.
All right. And then what was it like to work with such major brands as DuPont in the manufacturing business? How complicated was that?
Well, as you might suspect, it depended on the industry. When we were DuPont's largest marketer and manufacturer of their products, their insulation products for apparel industry and the furniture industry. And we had a common goal. DuPont wanted to sell fiber, and so did we. So they were a lot easier to get along with than, say, Ford. When they were in the automotive industry, their goal was to make money. And not so much that we made money, but so it depended on the industry to some degree, how well the larger companies were to work with.
Well, and you grew up in West Texas and attended Texas Tech. Tell us about some of the more interesting people that you've met, people like Mike Leach and Bobby Knight.
Well, of course, both of those guys were very interesting people. I met Mike when he first came, and he called me one day and said, next time you're in Lubbock, would you come have lunch with me? I said, well, yeah, I'd be glad to. So I went and had lunch with he and Dennis Simmons, his recruiting, headed up his tech recruiting at the time, football recruiting. And he says, Carey said, I know how to make first downs, but I don't know how to be the politician I need to be for this job. And will you help me? And so, of course, I'll do anything I can. He was right, and it proved to be a fact that he could make first downs and wasn't so much on the politicking.
And, one of your other great friends was Bobby Knight. Tell us about Bobby Knight and your world tour, bringing your friends like Hal J at WBAP to come meet him.
Well, yes. One time I heard Bob Knight talk about how hard it was to recruit basketball players to Lubbock. And I was kind of reminded of Hal J and Steve Lamb and the bunch of WBAP, how they oftentimes made fun of Lubbock. And I think their favorite song was Mac Davis. My favorite song is Lubbock in the rearview mirror. Anyway, so I was telling my friend John Fletcher about this, and he came up with the idea of having a contest And the winner of the Dallas-Fort Worth area we would fly them out to Lubbock for a basketball game, and we would meet Bob Knight before the game, win or lose. And if they won, we'd meet with him after the game also. Any rate, they ran the promotion for about 6 weeks, and a man from Indiana that lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area won the bid. And so we all got on the airplane, and our airplane, and which was not a jet, but it was big enough we could all get on it. At any rate, we flew out, and we met Bob Knight before the game. And Bob Knight could be very charming when he wanted to. And he really liked the WBAP bunch, Hal J. and hit that group, and against Iowa State. And so Bob Knight took us downstairs after the game and did 45 minutes of stand-up comedy for us.
Well, that was a wonderful thing. And also, when they got back on that following Monday, Hal and Steve, they did an entire 4-hour show about nothing but Texas Tech, Bobby Knight, and about Lubbock. And so it was, I mean, the Lubbock Chamber of Commerce couldn't have asked for more, and the Texas Tech Board of Regents was pretty happy with that as well. And if you recall, we came back 2 weeks later, did the same thing in Houston, and then the next year we did it in San Antonio as well. So you kind of owned the rights to the Bobby Knight World Tour. Yes, you met powerful politicians over the years, even hosting a future president in your home. What's it like to be connected to people at that level?
Well, you learn they're just people like you and I, and they make decisions based on the same things, and have done more things and have a bigger name.
So what is your favorite memory of, I know George W. Bush, you had him in your home. What was he like?
Oh, well, he's very personable and very easy to get along with. He came to Waco one time, and we played tennis. This is whenever his dad was president, and there was a bounty out for the Bush family. One of the foreign drug cartels or something had a bounty on their families' heads. At any rate, so we played tennis, came back and showered before the event we were going to, and he finished before I did, and there were 4 ladies over at our house visiting, and he sat down to talk with them, and they said, boy, it must really be nice to be famous and flying helicopter one and all the things, but it must be a real bore to have to take Secret Service with you and think about them. That must just be terrible. And George W. said, well, he said, it's not all bad. He said, I was up visiting Mom and Dad in Washington last week. We were playing the Washington's baseball team, and we sat in the house until about 20 minutes before the game, and got up and walked out in the backyard, got on the helicopter, flew to the gate closest to our seats at the stadium, and when the game was over, got in and flew home. So he said, it's kind of a pain to have to put up with them, but it's not all bad.
Yeah. Well, now you just published your book, Piloting Life. Tell us the role that flying has played in your life.
Well, it has broadened my life a great deal. I've learned to fly, flew in the Marine Corps, and then I got out and got my private license and had an airplane, and it has enabled me to have a life that I never imagined. Number one, getting to help people that needed some transportation and, times of illness or death or something. And flying, I've flown a lot of politicians. The main one was Phil Graham that I flew Phil. He's the first person I flew, and I flew him for his House races, and then in his Senate races, and when he was running for president. And so, and it just enabled me to meet people that I would have never met otherwise. And so it's been a great part of my life.
So tell us about a favorite story in the book. I know it's only 400 pages, just filled with so many incredible stories. I just couldn't put it down. But tell me about one or two of your favorite stories in the book.
Well, one of my favorite stories is when I was in high. This is not about flying, but I was in high school. I had a twin brother, and then he and I had two friends we were very close to. One of them named Eddie Painter, who later became the DA in Abilene, and James Rose, whose dad owned a construction company. And Eddie had a old Model A, and we taken and just cut the top off of it, so it made it, well, you might call it convertible. And so Bob Hope was coming to Abilene one time, and the only place in Abilene at the time, big enough venue that's large enough to have Bob Hope was Rose Field House, which is a field house at Hardin Simmons that James's dad had donated to him, built for him. And we heard that he was going to be visiting another friend of ours in high school with her dad and their house. And so we went out to the Rose Field House that night and found our friend's dad's car. He had a black Cadillac. And we just surmised that when it was over, that he would come out, Mr. Wright, and we just sat there beside him until time, everybody left, and then out they came and got in the car. And Bob Hope got in the right front seat. Mr. Wright was driving, and they were going down to the hotel where Bob Hope was staying. And they were taking the back streets. And so we just drove along beside him, and we got to talking to Bob Hope. And he talked about Bing Crosby and all the things he joked about. And it just couldn't have been nicer, very personal, driving along. And he got out down at the hotel. He got out, and we decided that we'd go ask him if he'd like to go riding with us, just riding around. And so I was selected to go ask him. And so he got out of his car, and I caught him at the hotel door. And I said, Mr. Hope, I introduced myself, and I said, we're just going to go riding around, and kind of motioned over to the Model A. And we would like to know if you'd like to go with us. And he had on a tux, and he kind of looked down in, his trousers and stuff, and said, well, I can't go in this tux. And so I said, well, we'll wait on you to change clothes if you want to. And he said, okay, I might do that. I'll do that. And so I went back to the car, the Model A, and we talked about it. And our combined wisdom decided there was at least a 50-50 chance that he would not come down, that he would just said that. And so we decided that we ought to just leave, because there was a 50-50 chance he wouldn't come down. And if he did, we'd be the only nobodies to stand Bob Hope up in 20 years. So we drove off, and we never knew if he came back or not.
Wow. Okay. Tell us the three greatest takeaways of the book. What do we need to learn from your book?
Don't ever give up. And a Texas Tech basketball coach, Grant McCaslin, has a saying that I like to use, and that is don't let your defeats define you. And number 3, you always can depend on the Lord to help through hard times and good times, and use it.
Well, I think those are some great takeaways. Well, Carrie, thank you so much. The book is Piloting Life, One Man's Reflections on Life and the Lessons He Learned. And also, those are lessons that we can all learn from you as well. Carrie, thank you much. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
You
Thanks a
bet.
lot.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.